respect, status, leadership. You can lose all of this if you don't learn one lesson. Now I'm going to tell you a story from my life that taught me the power of silence. Let's begin. I once worked for a man who loved to control people. He studied psychology and used it to manage everyone around him. When I realized I was becoming one of the people he was controlling, I understood something important. Silence was my only way out. I started noticing how he tried to approach me from different angles. He wanted to know my goals. He wanted to find my weak points and vulnerabilities. He used provocations, questions, pressure. But when I started giving him zero reaction, this manipulator, who had everyone else under his thumb, he began to respect me. He started listening. I drew his attention to myself, not through words, but through silence. Less talking, more listening, and it worked. I realized silence is my best friend. In any situation, it protects me from saying too much. It never damages my confidence. And then I understood. My story isn't a coincidence. It's a direct reflection of what Robert Greene writes about. Now I'm going to tell you more. Robert Greene understood something that most negotiators discover only after losing money, leverage, and respect. The person speaking the most is rarely the person controlling the deal. So what happens when you name your price, look across the table, and refuse to rescue the other person from the silence? Most people lose money before they even open their mouth, because they enter the room already afraid of the pause. They fear appearing difficult. They fear rejection. They fear that if they do not keep explaining, persuading, and filling the space, the opportunity will disappear. But that fear is exactly what experienced negotiators are waiting to see. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to use silence to control any negotiation and never overpay or undersell again. There is one principle from Robert Greene that almost every ambitious business person has heard, but very few have mastered. Always say less than necessary. It sounds simple. It is not. To say less than necessary, you must first control the part of your mind that wants approval, certainty, and immediate relief. Silence is not merely the absence of speech. In negotiation, silence is pressure without aggression. It is information gathering without interrogation. It is confidence without performance. The reason silence works is deeply psychological. Human beings are uncomfortable with unresolved situations. For most of human history, sudden silence could signal danger. A forest becoming quiet might mean a predator was nearby. A member of the tribe refusing to speak could suggest rejection, conflict, or hidden hostility. The nervous system learned to treat unexplained silence as a problem that needed to be solved. That ancient reaction still operates inside modern conference rooms. When a buyer stops talking after hearing a price, the seller feels danger. When an investor remains expressionless after a presentation, the founder feels danger. When a client pauses after receiving a proposal, the consultant feels danger. The body begins searching for relief, and the fastest relief appears to be more speech. So the seller begins explaining, then justifying, then reducing the price, then adding services that were never requested. The buyer has said nothing, yet the seller has negotiated against himself. This is why silence is so expensive for the person who cannot tolerate it. Robert Greene's law of saying less than necessary is not a recommendation to become cold, rude, or mysterious for the sake of appearance. It is a warning about uncontrolled disclosure. Every unnecessary sentence gives the other side another piece of information. You reveal what you fear. You reveal how urgently you need the deal. You reveal where your confidence ends. You reveal which part of your offer you are prepared to sacrifice. Words create surfaces that can be attacked. Silence creates uncertainty. Consider a simple negotiation. You are selling a service to a company. You have calculated that the project is worth $50,000. You present the value, explain the outcome, and state your price. Then the decision maker leans back and says nothing. 5 seconds pass. You begin to wonder whether the number was too high. 10 seconds pass. You imagine the deal collapsing. 15 seconds pass. You feel an almost physical urge to say that the price is flexible. That moment is the negotiation. The presentation was preparation. The proposal was positioning. But the moment you feel compelled to weaken your own position is the real test. If you speak because you have new information, speak. If you speak because the silence is making you nervous, remain quiet. The first technique is simple. After naming your price, stop talking. Do not immediately explain the price again. Do not laugh nervously. Do not apologize for the number. Do not say that you might be able to make adjustments. State the price calmly and allow the other person to process it. A serious offer deserves space. Many negotiators make the mistake of believing that silence communicates uncertainty. In reality, disciplined silence often communicates the opposite. It suggests that you have already examined the facts. You know what the work requires. You know what the result is worth. You are not inventing the number in response to the other person's facial expression. The person who speaks first after the price is named often reveals the most. The buyer may reveal that the number is within budget, but higher than expected. The client may reveal that another offer was cheaper, but lacked an essential feature. The investor may reveal the specific risk causing hesitation. By remaining quiet, you allow the real objection to emerge instead of negotiating against an objection you imagined. The second technique appears when you receive resistance. When someone says your price is too high, do not react immediately. Pause. Most objections are not final decisions. They are tests, emotional reactions, or invitations for more information. If you respond too quickly, you signal that you expected the objection and may already be prepared to retreat. Instead, hold the pause for a moment and let the statement remain in the room. Then ask a precise question. Too high compared with what? Which part of the proposal feels misaligned with the value? What would need to be true for this investment to make sense? The pause changes your response from defensive to analytical. You are no longer trying to escape the objection. You are examining it. This is where Robert Greene's principle of winning through actions, rather than argument, becomes powerful. Weak negotiators try to defeat objections with verbal force. They pile on claims. They repeat benefits. They argue that the other side is failing to understand. Strong negotiators return to evidence. They show results. They present performance. They clarify terms. They allow the structure of the offer to make the argument. You do not need 20 sentences explaining that your company is reliable when you can show a record of delivering on time. You do not need to argue that your service creates value when you can demonstrate measurable savings or increased revenue. Action shortens the negotiation because proof reduces the need for persuasion. History offers a powerful example in the sale of Carnegie Steel. Andrew Carnegie did not spend months publicly pleading with J.P. Morgan to recognize the value of his empire. A price was communicated clearly. Morgan evaluated the opportunity and accepted. The scale of the transaction was enormous, yet the central moment was not an emotional debate. It was a number backed by assets, production, market power, and results. The lesson is not that every offer should be accepted without discussion. The lesson is that a position becomes stronger when it is supported by reality and delivered without nervous over-explanation. Carnegie's industrial power had already made the argument. The words only had to define the terms. The third technique is using silence in group meetings. Many professionals believe they regain attention by raising their voice. Often, the more powerful method is to stop speaking. When side conversations begin, when people become distracted, or when a discussion loses focus, do not always compete with the noise. Stop. Look calmly around the room. Allow the silence to become noticeable. People naturally search for the source of an unexpected pause. Attention returns because the pattern has changed. You are not demanding control. You are allowing the room to recognize that control has been lost. Then continue in a lower, steadier voice. This works because authority is rarely communicated through frantic effort. The leader who must constantly fight for attention appears dependent on the audience. The leader who can pause appears willing to let the room come back to the subject. Jeff Bezos built a form of structured silence into important Amazon meetings. Participants would begin by silently reading a carefully written memo before discussion. This prevented the loudest person from immediately framing the issue. It gave people time to absorb the facts before reacting. It replaced improvisation with preparation. That silence was not empty. It was productive. It improved the quality of attention. In negotiation meetings, you can use the same principle. Before debating a proposal, allow the decision makers to read the essential terms. When a complicated point is introduced, give the room time to think. Do not confuse immediate reactions with intelligent conclusions. The fourth technique is especially useful on the phone. Telephone silence feels longer because there are fewer visual signals. You cannot always see whether the other person is thinking, reading, or waiting. That uncertainty causes inexperienced negotiators to speak too quickly. After asking an important question, remain quiet. What budget has been approved for this project? What is preventing us from moving forward? Which term is creating the greatest concern? Ask the question, then let the pause work. Do not weaken the question by answering it for them. Do not offer several possible responses. Do not say that it is fine if they do not know. Let them think. Skilled negotiators understand that useful information often appears after the first answer. A person gives a safe response, notices that you are not interrupting, and then continues. The second statement is often more honest than the first. The third may reveal the true motive. This is why experienced interviewers and crisis negotiators use pauses. Silence encourages the other person to continue without being pressured by another question. It communicates that you are listening and that the conversation does not need to be rushed. But silence must be used with discipline. If you turn it into a theatrical weapon, people will sense the performance. Staring aggressively, creating artificial discomfort, or refusing to answer reasonable questions is not power. It is insecurity disguised as strategy. Ethical silence is not deception. It does not require lying, hiding defects, or creating false urgency. It means refusing to give away your position merely because you feel nervous. It means listening before reacting. It means respecting your own value enough to let your offer stand. In halal and ethical business, silence remains permissible when it is not used to conceal important truth, misrepresent a product, or exploit another person. You are not deceiving anyone by pausing. You are not obligated to reveal your private limit, your desperation, or every thought passing through your mind. You can be honest without being strategically careless. There is a difference between withholding truth and withholding unnecessary information. A seller must disclose a serious defect. A negotiator does not need to disclose the lowest price they would secretly accept. A buyer should not lie about competing offers. A buyer can remain silent while deciding whether the current offer is fair. This is self-control, not manipulation. And self-control changes your presence. Imagine entering your next negotiation without the need to impress anyone. You ask better questions because you are not preparing your next speech while the other person is talking. You notice changes in tone. You hear what is avoided. You recognize when an objection is genuine and when it is only a tactic. You stop treating every pause as a threat. That alone creates power. Most people think confidence means always knowing what to say. Real confidence often means knowing when nothing should be said. There is also a financial reason to master this. Every unnecessary concession has a compounding cost. A small discount on one contract may establish a lower price for future renewals. An extra service offered during an uncomfortable pause may become a permanent expectation. A weak response to one objection may teach the buyer that pressure produces rewards. Your fear of 10 seconds of silence can cost you years of profit. So prepare before the negotiation begins. Know your ideal outcome. Know your acceptable outcome. Know the point at which the deal no longer makes sense. Silence becomes easier when your decisions have already been made. Without preparation, silence is confusion. With preparation, silence is strength. When you name your price, stop. When you receive an objection, pause. When the meeting loses focus, become still. When you ask an important question on the phone, allow the answer to arrive. And when you feel the urge to speak, examine the urge. Are you contributing value, or are you trying to relieve tension? Are you clarifying the agreement, or are you seeking approval? Are you responding to facts, or reacting to fear? The negotiator who can answer those questions gains an advantage that cannot be copied through scripts or clever phrases. That advantage is emotional sovereignty. Robert Greene's deeper message is not that power comes from tricks. Power comes from controlling what others cannot control in themselves. Their impatience, their ego, their need to be understood, their fear of appearing weak, their hunger for immediate agreement. When you control those forces within yourself, you become difficult to pressure. You no longer chase the deal across the table. You allow both sides to examine whether the deal deserves to exist. Silence is not emptiness. It is power. The person who controls the pause controls the deal. The next time you negotiate, do not measure your strength by how much you say. Measure it by how calmly you can let the truth, the evidence, and the value of your offer remain in the room without assistance. If you want to dominate your next negotiation, start practicing. No silence today. Subscribe for more business psychology. And if you want more, there will be more. I hope I helped you today, because honestly, I do this work because I genuinely enjoy it. I just want to make a contribution, to share whatever knowledge I have. Because if you have something valuable, you have a responsibility to share it with others. So there will be more. Those who want to grow with me, they will come. Those who don't, that's fine. This is not force. This is a choice. And I respect every choice. See you in the next one.